Merry Christmas, America and world. And Merry Christmas, New York. And Connecticut, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously. If you please help me, New York, I have your short words in the form where they can be protracted. Everyone. But man, for example, the other day, I spoke with the Wethersfield Police. They're still playing this game. From former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, in his defendant capacities, before that, during that, and since. He's involved with, recorded a whole bunch of ways to correlation can prove this. Outside of courts, but the courts are offensively proving things falsely since founding. Fabricating audio and video into databases, valuing that simultaneously while they're pretending like that. They're separating subjects too, because those are inseparable subjects, even though they're different subjects, because the identity, the ground location uses, also where and how sequence shifts are being self-valued, and how they have criminally foreign influence readings of statutes, where they have foreign and domestic medical families and doctors attaching little kids and their families to more and more fake words, sticking more and more criminally foreign influence data into databases because of uses of it too. Now, so this is originally and still. It is also recorded various ways, how differentially the branches of government individually grouped together overt criminal enterprises and private ones are kept needing to hide the same sequence shifts, finite, active, progressive lies, identity thefts and frauds roles, and use with elections locations. For example, they are recorded simultaneously pretending people make theories about this. And they have to defend that. They have to increasingly self-value what is actually recorded, which is fake things that are put into databases. They even have a so our town's police chief. See, this is how they have the sense and sensibilities of everyone. Then they pretend it's personal against. Oh, then why were you saying that? They believe they can go back and forth when they no longer can, because they've been fabricating audio and video too long. These are people involved with the World Trade Center attack, investigations of it that were in collusion because they were already used remotely through their roles with evidence racketeering every single day. That's what speaks for our founding parents. All victim predators and one gang that's differential to all locations. It's in collusion. They even have the private, so they have the branch of government, the overt criminal enterprise is private, also horizontally right onto the campuses, vertically and horizontally kept needing to hide each age generation of all locations, even killers. And this is the stuff that reveals, for example, all the studies they're doing. They have people like so anyway, they're also associated with the holidays, further with the Principal Child Defenders Campus, and with the coronavirus. Right before the coronavirus started, there were more people recorded, confessed, and demonstrated. Also, with interbranch Facebook pages being used for a method that uses their roles with corruption, so they could use the investigators of it for a worse corruption method. They already had people retired right before our founding parents were here. This was sophistication first. Now people make theories and they want to debate using criminally foreign influence premises treatments, sequence treatments, finite, active, progressive treatments, identity treatments. So we're not going to ignore the finite. How it is forsaken. So Wethersfield Police, they recorded, confessed, and demonstrated they're playing stupid because they're being directed by people to keep forging and switching names and then play stupid. They're telling me to write them a letter. That's it. You see, because they've been lying about what I write online. They have roles with methods recorded with the people calling in fake concerns because of their roles with identity thefts and frauds through time. We have investigations of having people act sequence shifts. All kinds of ways there is medical corruption. All kinds of ways. There is all the programs with the kids, private and other, the town offices, the intelligence people, the people that are their neighbors. That's all revealed because of how they use investigators, and vetting of correlation, perception nature, opinion nature / conviction natures, recorded overtly delusion wrought, simultaneously delusions wrought, criminally foreign influence, all formal convictions / opinions. People are using the knowledge, the most knowledge. The only reason they have the most knowledge is because they have the path to it. Like psycho, because all the answers are right here in the primary grades. And with that, in the higher education, other than they have it, because all identity ground locations are still in that breaching method, that predicate acts delivery system method. So we have two different arrests, a whole bunch of different arrests through time, but that the Wethersfield police made with me, against me. They were also in intercities, on and off Central Connecticut State University through time, with the intelligence community, with their kids, with doctors and their kids, real sick people that have fake conversations with me about my family through time, and fake conversations with them. Now these are people that are tied to people that walk up to you and make statements to you, etc. And people that pretend they were in your location, because these are interbranch. These are people like a Leahy family, pretending conversations may never have. I purposely had no conversation, but a clipboard. The younger brother Leahy in the Wethersfield triage. Now another guy was there. We could find his name. They're all associated with a Dillon family. But with detectives that are involved through time with drug crimes and medicine crimes with kids, but also ones that were involved with the courts with that, and with Washington, D.C. and World Trade Center, and with all sides of Wethersfield High School and the middle school, and all sides of the locations next to that, where they have people using people's names. No. So Wethersfield police called me about a month ago, leading up to holidays. And these are some sick sequence shifting people. Put me in fake quotations, communications with the older Mendez brothers. There's an Eric Mendez and there's an older one. I don't know his name. On the police department grounds. These are people that have been on roles also grouped with interest. This is in Wethersfield, Connecticut. These are people also on off Fox Connecticut News in Hartford, Connecticut, and with the locations next to them and next to that. Also involved with predicate acts and or wrongdoing, and with judges and prosecutors as victim predators, also with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, private and churches. There are people with the DMV and that were involved with policing of stores through time, and that are involved with programs that are on and off campuses connected. Worse than just interstates, worse than just internations. It is recorded how they were kept criminally for, kept needing to hide time sequence shifts, find active progressive lies, uses of their perception. See, because then they're going to defend that, uses of their defense that, uses of their criminally foreign influence. All hundreds of nations at once, all legal identities. Victim predators the same way they overt criminal enterprises. People like Enzo Fianza recorded, and his cousin, I forgot his cousin's name. I don't know them. People tied to this Dillon family. And people on the child sex offender registry also recorded being and having been involved with other natures of bad things, like predicate acts with Wethersfield police, with other countries and our military, with identity thefts and frauds. And these are also because how judges of various natures in courts were involved with little boys and girls. Sickly for how they had identity ground locations used. A whole bunch of people, like, I barely know. And I only know them because they sought me out to make confessions. The people around them made confessions when I was a kid with Wethersfield parks. Also tied, all these people have ties to Central Connecticut State University and Trinity College in Yukon, Middlesex, you know, Wesleyan. The locations next to them. This is former director of the FBI, what he's involved with, not just in that case, but in other cases, with judges, like, for example, with my military sources. As strangers that sought me out to make these confessions, and Eric Burgess and Emily or Amy, and it is confirmed by the court, whether to extent they do know and don't know. After the World Trade Center attack, before the World Trade Center attack, Hartford courts. I didn't know it at the time, but former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, his co-defendants, one of them who had a daughter in my grade, involved with my daughter, the daughter of my town's police chief, per them. Then they pretend to be it's personal, because they've been attaching me to fake audio and video since I was a kid. They've been attaching everyone around me to fake audio and video since I was a kid. People tied to this Leahy family. There's like at least 2 people named Brendan Leahy and a bunch of women that work with Hartford Hospital, involved with crimes with the lawyers of that place also, and a whole bunch of foreign and domestic nurses and interculturally charged, delusions wrought, criminally foreign influenced people fabricating audio and video, sequence shifting, making whole fake conversations about legal cases where they're associated with federal criminals from other cases that were also defendants in those cases and lost and were ongoing in relationship to a case that was ongoing at the time of my father's death, which is also relevant. These are also people using with the federal, see, they have hierarchy messed up because we have locations, areas, states, criminally foreign influence. They're not following what the hierarchy actually tells them. And like, for example, Marbury versus Madison, real justice must satisfy all appearances of real justice. I shouldn't have to beg for rights and pick. They're telling me to write a letter. I told them over the phone 50 times. They called me too, about a month ago. That's why I called back. They called from Wethersfield town offices. But then they said it was Wethersfield Police when I called there, because the guy on the phone said it was Wethersfield Police. He said his name was Sullivan, but now they have a female Sullivan. That's another name switching instance. These are a whole bunch of instances. This is worse than just extortion. There are also people with gyms, with boxing gyms in Connecticut that are recorded, confessed, and demonstrated, involved with people that are involved with identity thefts and frauds, with the military, with the people with the people that work with the prisons, on off the state of Connecticut judicial branch offices, locations next to the state of Connecticut prison offices, on the edge of Hartford/Wethersfield. No. This is a syntax trap that was set up since before our founding parents were born, with slavery in the North and the South. It is not just so convenient where they have self-valued. How there was slavery, sickly, distinctly in the North and the South, blamed on other causes, other things, and selves. And while they're self-valuing, the real causes, when they were saying real things, real motivations for sick things like that, they're self-valuing that used to screen what really it was. What really, the short words have means to reveal in one day, 1 second. One day. in every class. Abridged sciences. Delusions raw. That's what speaks for every identity of the ground location, let alone those most forsaken. So we're going to open up a whole bunch of new locations. Means to new locations. No matter who's president, doesn't matter. They'll agree. We're going to come as a nature capable of overcoming, that which is only fathomable. Being valuable as nature, can't defend that. And afford the quality of fact-keeping nature capable of countering those natures of criminal insidiousness, being and having been employed. Where and how there is the complete fact-keeping nature slavery of our founding parents that is increasingly positive to admit and understand it, because that's what they wanted us to admit and understand. The logistics, not just logistics, not just physical logistics, not just metaphysical logistics, not just identity logistics. This is where and how identity, individually, grouped, and together. Species, identity of volume, is every complete identity is simultaneously a semi-nature. All three of those individually grouped and together are. That's why that's one of the things increasing that are in demonstration of that. There are exceptions in exception nature set up countless. Also, to keep anyone from discerning this, they have the complete possession over the fact-keeping nature of every identity, the ground location of humanity, in ways that not one had fathomed. When I say that they were sophistication here first, this is not to be an emotional video. This is to be a science capable of countering that complete identity, that method of criminal insidiousness, that criminal insidiousness method that forced all to roles as what? Methods. And now this is also, it was forced slavery of nations, syntax in relationship to how we are individually grouped and together. Now tactical ulterior, because now abridged science is tactical ulterior from how we are supposed to be tied to our syntax nature actual, which is native pure. This is what Native Americans, I can't find the video on YouTube. There's a Native American said that he and others believe that we must read each other's dreams. And this is what theirs is, to have their short words allowed to protract and to have their emotions and passions allowed to connect that which was more finite than the most finite thing, while being the value of the finite, while being the value of the order of the finite, while being the order of the finite, while being the order of what is active, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, as what helps reveal the Trinity, which we are inside of itself, while as itself, just like cell nucleus, cell body, cell wall, are revealed to us through the microscope and through our biology classes, for example, as a Trinity, and as a complete identity, as a cell, but also as a semi-nature relationship to your complete identity, to the living thing's complete identity. That semi-nature relationship is also where we are individual grouped and together species. This is volume science. I'm not speaking a theory. See, people make allegations against other and keeps conversations about theory. because countries A through Z, they have roles with psychology. They have roles with little research. In theory, that was as offensively as trained predatory, though. And so this method knew that it was going to congeal such, and then to congeal defenses of such, and so to congeal uses of tactically criminally foreign influence sequence treatments, illusions in place, delusions in place too. Tactically criminally foreign influence finite value/value progression treatments, order treatments, simultaneously active, progressive, identity, and differentially and constantly in relationship to one identity of volume, in relationship to its identity of relationship to itself, in relationship to the value of that, only increasing simultaneously, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously. Also further relative and variable too. Two other identities of sequence/simultaneous nature, also trinities. Also all semi-nature relationship to its identity of relationship to itself, just like yours is. Your identity's identity of relationship to itself and the value of that. See, but now, this is through a filter. Now this is through a membrane and through screens, plural. Positions, the all engineered, propagated as identity grounds, conjunction to our identity ground, conjunctions to our quality of fact treatment nature, sequence nature, the engineering of our syntax nature, the engineering of our quality of fact treatment nature, quality positive or negative, onto one identity, volume, its identity of relationship to itself and the value of that. But to discern this too, we have to have it. We have to use the other two identities as sequence/simultaneously nature, yet here by only one way. And so God was more probably and demonstrably used as and needed to be used as by us as a scientific value, so we can discern about what variables and constants are really about, what identity is really about, what identity's relationship to locations, value/value progression and memory/IES is really about. And so we have the native words. And it's one thing if we had the native words, honestly, this would be demonstrated. If the formal stewards of order were righteous with that. See, not one word has been defined properly. We don't do this because they're trying to because they want to make it worse. They want to redefine words. We just have to learn about the identity that each of the sub-definitions of words share. We have to learn about this identity of volume as a scientific value. That is the value that is simultaneous. No, in other words, there is one identity of volume, a scientific value that can be claimed, that has to be claimed, to have conversations that are scientific in relationship to all the identities of relativity, individually grouped and together relevant to that. See, the identity of relativity is real. They're putting theories first, with each age of fact treatment nature, right where there are obligations to have correlation, speaking and knowing and being trained. Not being trained, being self-trained by what is actually real, native pure. That one identity that can only be. That one identity is where there is far and close, for example. Where we use a microscope to magnify what is far and big. And where we use a microscope to magnify, we use a telescope to magnify what is far and big, rather. We use a microscope to magnify what is near and small, finite. What is big is out of our control and is in our control certain way, one way alone. What is too finite to be in our control is in our control and or is out of our control one way alone. And but see, no one's fathomed. This is where the Santa Claus gifts, even if it wasn't about this, this is where they come from. Evolution's fruits and gifts. They come from its identity of relationship to itself, and the value of that only increasing again as 5 distinct identities of sequence/simultaneous nature bound by what is distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously binding it. And so sequence nature is a subject/s. But anywhere it is a subject, anywhere anything is a subject, so is this simultaneous nature. Only the extent of the existence of the need for a variable and or a constant where its identity of relationship to itself, for example, causes evolution's fruits and gifts. It means out of nowhere, or it forces them from here. Leith of Hades. More probably, the ancients would have said, this is about force, space, nature transfer. The ancients demonstrably went by what was by an evolution science that they couldn't fathom. We would forget or deny the identity of the grounds, identity of relationship to itself, and the value of that distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously from ours too. Also, its syntax nature and ours, and where its syntax nature is different than ours. That was only so we could see real difference by that identity of volume science. That is the identity of correlation/discorrelation. So even if people don't speak the same language, we can figure it out. And we already have it figured out. But all those interactions, all identity of the ground locations, and further intersciences, further database relationships, and that was kept only capable of hiding light progressions right back to each identity of, in each age of, in each location of, correlation nature, vertically and horizontally, to each age of, memory/s, to each instance. So we have 4 in that figured out a method that is clear as day, simple. They made instances in the past because they call people liars with people that don't even know each other. Carone brothers, Kerr brothers, DeMoro cousins and brothers with the same name. People associated with them with that. On intercities through time with Central Connecticut State University, with the training of state police. State police, their family members, everyone's neighbors. Everyone's forced to speak through other people. So And so they pretend people don't speak clear too, because then they bring up other people's names. They lock people already pretending passions and emotions with locations and interbranch. And with the differentially with the overt criminal enterprises and the private ones, clear as day, originally still. There are negative value nature progressions, action natures only capable of being per takes on, jobs and all that, where it ties to where it actually plays out. No one spoke for those kids. You have those little kids with those locations in North End, Hartford, and or the suburbs. They pretend little kids are evil and stuff like that. They're leaving out how they are. See, they do distinctly and non-distinctly, clear as day. They're right in our faces, recorded. The overt criminal enterprises, per them, with Hartford and stuff like that, with the people, even though involved with the predicate acts with Wethersfield Police. So even if it's undercover with them too, they're actually recorded and involved with identity thefts and frauds and roles with falsified police reports, roles with wire crime acts and methods, where they have people calling fake complaints. So they have to hide life progressions, where they're making positive and negative treatments that are sick, and where their uses of words like behavior. These are people instigating people of each age and befriending the multi-front. Because these are people, that same people involved with this, Wethersfield, Connecticut, interbranch, intercities through time, intercampuses. They were our people involved, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated. They can pretend that's recorded evidences too. That's why the forging and switching names with the Wethersfield Police and their methods of pretending not to realize are so severe that we have to have Attorney General take federal stewardship of Connecticut. They've been using Facebook for too long for their own interbranch racketeering, states and areas, locations, areas, criminally foreign influence. That's why New York has people stacking. This method knew that everyone was going to blame other things other than themselves, even when correctly, exactly the way the breaching method needs it to keep everyone fighting and using criminally foreign influence premises treatment, sequence treatments, use passions and emotions with words like science. Uses of the method of pretending, the audience doesn't like when we use passions or emotions, and we can't help it sometimes because everyone's fighting and playing out an identity that can't be defended and afford the protraction of the short words and or nor the short words, therefore, of people who need to report things properly. Because our interbranch have been in collusion originally and still, with and as identities of logic, with and as identities of psychology, of philosophy, with delusions, and with criminally foreign influence premises treatment, sequence treatments, and methods, active, progressive, identity thefts and frauds, methods roles, uses of identity, the ground, locations roles, that this breaching method knew would be increasingly self-valued, having been as well. And where that was as well, it was also used remotely as well for a whole bunch of different things that are methods that are not his own, but used remotely by it. So it is important to understand that and how the Wethersfield Police are asking me to hide a whole bunch of ways they use the Wethersfield Library in countries like Afghanistan. They are also, Afghanistan used us too, though. So we're not going to play that money crap, because we have a whole bunch of countries here in the territory of Puerto Rico involved with criminal justice systems Also, the people all tied to them private, like the prisons, the training of them, their family members, recorded how kept criminally foreign influence, kept needing to hide the same sequence as final active progressive lies with killers, and further with the principal child offenders campus, and with the military, and with their uses of identity ground locations. So there are people with a forensics place, a bunch of forensics places, and state police that are involved with more real bad things with kids and with people of each age, the same group /S. They have uses of elderly homes, for example, that have nothing to do. These are from off locations. They maintain victim reactions, then defend it. And while they're defending that, they simultaneously are self-valuing that having been defended by the other victims of it from off all locations, like campuses. So these are people preventing proper teachers, also because of how they have the separate trainings for people with the intelligence community that are criminally foreign influenced. So there are houses all along Church Street in Old Wethersfield. And with and from there, right around the corner from it, on Main Street in Old Wethersfield, where George Washington had to come right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War and secure the help of the French general to win the Revolutionary War. And slavery was still entrenched north and south. By that method, that had the identity of England, they had the identity of each colony, the ones that were English or not, had the identities of France, had the identities of Spain, has each country individually grouped together, forced to value themselves tactically grouped ulterior from how we're supposed to be individually grouped together. But it was no one's fault. And everyone was self-valuing. Roles were what caused it. And what caused it to be self-valued. See, no one realized that with the semi-ancient archetypal criminal enterprise did, /does. Even if it's not real. A breaching method does it. So, while we're waiting for the Wethersfield police, they want me to write a letter because they've been pretending they don't understand me, because they've been replacing what is actually recorded audio and video. They called me from the Wethersfield town offices. Also the name Sullivan, there are people on Park Street that are recorded, confessed, and demonstrated through time with intercities, with intelligence community, interbranch family members, judges that are involved, also with former director of the FBI, others were involved with his deposition and the depositions of his co-defendants. No, one of them pretended not to have known things that were proven in court, pretending others were guilty with passions and emotions. Now, there were also people doing this through time, tied to Joshua Julian, uses of their kids with prosecutors and judges with the principal sex offenders campus, and a Joshua Julian who's also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated by my neighbor. He knows him. I remember his name being repeated by him. These are people that he used to have friends that he attached me to fake locations with them. Now they also make fake sides of they do acting, and then they have someone else appear, and they make it look like with the Grange Hall. I don't know those, and the people associated with Trinity College and with Central Connecticut State University. These are ones with various natures of courts, through time, various ways. at various points of time, involved also with fire departments, involved with remote uses of all identity ground locations, and with the body dumping spots of the serial killer and of the Billy Grasso, and with all the pattern of confessions and ties between strangers I don't know, that I own, and the ones that I only know because they approached me with a whole bunch of confessions when I was a kid, which you'll examine. I figured it out, why and how that is manifest, where and how the directors of agencies were recorded and involved, the leaderships of the executive branch, the judicial branch, and the political branch recorded distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously methods of hiding where they are, overtly / insidiously, involved with the answer /S to why and how there is people stacking in New York City and in other countries at the same time, to why and how there are suburbs that are homes styles that since before cars with a forced pathology. All exceptions in exception nature are in demonstration of the same thing. Boxing. Our founders would ask you, they wouldn't be able to fathom it. You left out how there was slavery in the North and the South. How could you leave that out? How could you leave out the breaching method? What the heck did you blame it on? Racism? Holy cow. Many of you don't do that honestly. It's because of the nature of the sickly distinctly, every nature of campus, no matter where it is. It's a sacred thing. But it's also sacredly distinctly sick. It's a sick thing. Positive and negative. This has nothing to do with making positive out of negative. Positive will only make more of itself or force it from here. With this science of positive, because it's not about one thing. That is, unless it's checked to be 1/3/5 things, which is order of sequence, the order before sequence that is distinct from it, but also not distinct from it while it is as the value of the order of the finite. So that's 2. The active, the progressive, and identity. Again, where identity is a semi-nature relationship to that identity of value / value progression that is not invented. In fact, inventions work or not in relationship to its identity of volume science. Its identity of volume science is identity of relationship to itself and the increasing value of that. So, it's all right if they have volume theory. So we have correlations, natures simultaneously inherent, active, and progressive means forbid their means. So the Burroughs book is about how we're going to stack means and get on the same page. And we're going to do it through, for example, we have to set up the place to bring in the monies. That is all transparent for each identity ground location, like cities and suburbs. We're going to make we're going to make identity ground locations, areas and states, identity of relationship to the ground that is only capable of, when done properly, revealing increasing positive value nature progressions, acts, natures, and means from nowhere. And the whole identity of volume we are as humanity only needs the syntax nature, blaming this breaching method that came from semi-ancient times, knowing that we'd be incapable of having any one of any location, area, and state producing they would already be defending treatments of positive that are in criminal and seditious nature. They will, or they'd be self-valuing that with logic, while simultaneously or they'd be self-valuing criminal insidiousness nature negative, overtly negative, / insidiously simultaneously, in collusion to all identity of the ground locations. With what? With the method that is the subject of the fact-cheating nature, torture, and slavery of our founding parents, which is inseparable from those hurt most by it, then and now. And that's relevant also to anyone who tries to speak for it. The weight of that forced identity theft, forced blame on other or anything other than self by everyone, that is what's keeping it. Because what is unacceptable is unacceptable. Let the branches of government, let the sciences, let the gangs, let the private say it's not. That's fine. And we'll proceed from there. Let people take positions with sequence true. See, we have forging in names and switching names. A whole bunch of ways that's used. Because they were involved with identity thefts and frauds. Weathersfield police with the Weathersfield town offices, with the elections locations, with the churches locations too. The same method / S that uses next to the parks and on and off the parks, next to the schools and on and off the schools. Illusions roles with lie progressions. So, and there's a big difference between identity thefts and frauds and the natures of them. I'm not even a lawyer. It doesn't even have to be illegal. Everything's legal. But we never had anyone speak for law correctly. We never had mandated law followed where it counts. So not one identity of the ground location is proper. So we're going to do a whole bunch of things simultaneously. And it's going to reveal in nature. That's going to reveal a whole bunch of other things we're going to do simultaneously. And it's going to make the nature of all identity of the ground locations members feel and know liberation and through discernment of what we're all going to be letting lead us. Not some notion of God. God is a variable. To do this as a science, what's really the value of what's really true as sequence that came before the order of finite now. What's really the value of that? See, that's one, is a God variable. When you align off what's positive to all five orders of, or you're trying to, of identity. See, prayer is towards that. Prayer is towards correlation. So they reinvented prayer because they adapted to people trying to adapt to it and to overcome and counter the I saw a mouse in the garage the other day. I hope to God there's no mouse in here. I put a trap out there. I hope to God we have no mouse lovers. That just freaked me out. I could have sworn I saw something move there out of the corner of my eye. And we're all going to see the devil and or that preaching method. Because you can't tell American history without there telling about that preaching method. You can't answer too many questions properly and per how simultaneously phenomena are going to come through the students of the professors of each of the sciences. Not by accident. Time. where sense and sensibilities are making treatments of positive and negative. They have peripheral, they have relativity to where everyone's making theory treatments, delusion treatments, and with and as uses of words like research, and what uses of how they're attacking other people's arguments. They're forcing presidents to entertain natures of logic that locations in areas and states had self-valued and have self-valued still, where and how the overt criminal enterprises, the private ones, the foreign and domestic military, the policing shared, the identity shared, the jobs, the titles, the names treatments, the sciences treatments, all, but that was all fake when you use correlation, nature, simultaneously inherent, active, and progressive means. By these identities of truths that are true always, not denying any exceptions. It is unacceptable, the people stacking in New York City. And by admitting that, then we find that other nature of that invisible nature of, but still discernible, of positive that needs that to be discerned before we can proceed with evolution's fruits and gifts. It only feels like game. So the pamphleteers is about the Burroughs book, which is going to get us on the same page. It's also going to be about the America book, which is going to be half America, half funding for what they're going to help us set up. We have to work as countries. We're going to be modular. So we're going to put the means. We have to put things into the soil too, on mass scales. We have to change the nature of industries. We could do this by being on the same page, by converting, by admitting that. So we have victim predators, even industries, because we have an economic system. They say, "Oh, how come you look out for the big companies and not the little? How come you don't allow where both are fake and collusion to be discerned?" Because that's what is employed by the breaching method. For example, what is simultaneously easy or hard is described different by someone in an identity of negative, in and as an identity of negative value nature progression. Regardless if the person is successful or not in relationship to what's real, actually real, and as what's real and going to cause evolution's fruits and gifts. You can't judge this by people's behavior. You have to do this by allowing people to, defend ourselves and our identities. What you're going to observe recorded, since I was a kid, the same families have been stacking fabricated audio and video into databases. They've been self-valuing others doing it. Now they're going to pretend that's an allegation. That's proof of it right there today, the other day, with the Wethersfield police. With these officers, also Officer McGee is involved with this. With 2 different falsified police reports. 2 different arrests, a bunch of arrests, different intercities that are relevant. Because he's also one of the one. There are different McGees that say they have the name McGee, but they also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated a bunch of times that they only have one McGee. Now, to me and to others, they had different people on different arrests, including in the context right after my father's death, a few months after my father's death, which is also these guys are involved with a Dylan guy. They recorded, confessed, and demonstrated. They're involved with people on the child sex offender registry further then and now too, involved with identity thefts and frauds further with the Principal Child Defenders Campus through time, and other campuses connected, like Central Connecticut State University, which is not even in this city. And uses of my name by Joshua Stryker, involved with identity thefts and frauds, and like people involved with UPS, and with locations next to the post office, next to the Southstein Middle School, further involved, people involved with forensics locations, and with police forms, foreign and domestic, involved, military, foreign and domestic, identity theft, frauds. People with private schools involved with predicate acts with databases on public schools. Because of little tricks they use, everyone's missing. And not for the reasons they're pretending. So this is also identity thefts and frauds through administrations. There is complete possession of both political parties and all alternatives. There is complete possession of each identity of the laws. Fact-cheating nature. For example, in relationship to these games with the phones, with the Wethersfield police, and the people with the Facebook, and the phones with it tied to that too, and the Facebook page of New Britain Superior Court is recorded, confessed, and demonstrated since before the Principal Child Defender was found off campus. He's one of the ones that are involved with predicate acts on that campus, and with the people involved with the intercities, like places on Park Street, are involved with judges involved with various natures of various courts, are involved with the Alehi family personally and professionally, criminally involved with them, fabricating audio and video, fake conversations, fake ties to me since I was a kid behind my back informally. They even had WFSB pretend fake attach me and my family to fake words with the people that were involved with them then and now, with the Principal Sex Offenders Campus. They have the father of the new one of the other principals involved as a victim, but demonstrably they're using it as a victim predator, because they're forcing people to speak through others, and they're forcing people to pretend they don't understand what people say. Like, for example, the Principal Child Offender made confessions about a Mike Levine and about other people involved with his campus before he got caught for upskirt pictures. Now, there were also people from New Britain Superior Court that had been fabricating audio and video, and with the people that were also intercities involved on and off campuses and on and off the locations next to it with child abuses of juxtaposed natures. These are also because they're people involved with drugs in foreign and domestic, like a Gill family has roles with people that work with police, people associated with the FBI and prosecutors and judges, and people that train the people that work for the prisons and the military, because they're using databases and they're involved with data racketeering, identity thefts, and frauds. They have to counter through, because they're being forced to rules with sequence shifts first. This is also relevant to where and how they pretend they don't understand subjects, and they're being coached to replace what is actually recorded with what is fabricated. So get into this, because it's also the locations next to the media that they're ducking behind, whatever. So get them onto paper. I asked you 50,000 times, Wethersfield parents, speak up for the people with that parent-teacher meeting with the Principal Child Defenders Campus, because there are more people with the New Britain Superior Court through time involved with bad things with kids, including women judges involved with it, also with natures that need to be overcome, that where they're forging and switching names and preventing speech. They already use those locations criminally since founding. Locations, areas, states. Think about it. Use correlation in America. So, no one spoke for any of the people in history honestly, and they couldn't speak for themselves honestly. and or they spoke wrong. Because these are identity of the ground locations that are not capable of causing positive value